Good afternoon, Bison fans, and welcome to our Bucknell Men's Lacrosse Virtual Season Preview Show. My name is Todd Newcomb, and I'm joined today by Maisha Kelly, our Senior Associate AD for Development. And we want to take this opportunity to thank Giant for sponsoring this year's season preview series. Giant's been a great partner of Bison Athletics, and we thank them for all they do. So we've got a great lineup for you today, featuring head coach Frank Fedoraka and three of our current players, Tommy Sapko, Bryant Boswell, and Matt Fedoraka. Time now to welcome in the head coach of the Bison, Frank Fedoraka. Thanks for joining us today, Coach. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here.
All right, so Frank's in his 16th season at the helm of the men's lacrosse program after spending time as an assistant with the Bison for nearly 10 years prior to that. And under his guidance, the Herd has gone 61-35 in Patriot League play, qualified for the conference tournament 12 times, and won the Patriot League championship and advanced to the NCAAs in 2011. Frank has also been named the Patriot League Coach of the Year on 3 different occasions. So Frank, we're going to start out today with some questions from Maisha about your program's return to play.
Coach, great to see you. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're going to jump right in and just talk about what you, your staff, the student athletes are going through. As we know, there's been extensive preparation and planning from a health and safety standpoint. And so how has that impacted what your daily protocols are as you return to practices and certainly returning to competition?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's just great to be back out there practicing. It's been a long time since we've competed, and it's been a long time since things have been normal. But we're hitting stride now. We've been back. We were on a pause for a few weeks, as probably everybody that's watching this right now knows. But we've been full go now for over a week, and we're starting to catch our stride. There are challenges. The biggest challenge is mental toughness and just dealing with the constant fluidity of the situation. Every day there's a new challenge. Literally every day, every week is a completely different week than we actually anticipated coming into it. So our motto is to embrace adversity, and our guys are doing that. And the energy and enthusiasm that we have every day is pretty amazing, considering we haven't played anybody in 370 days.
Are you structuring, from the health and safety standpoint, structuring your practices and the way that your team engages with one another differently?
Yes. So, the simple part of starting practice, like normally we bring everybody in a pretty tight huddle, and we give a little bit of a pep talk and say, this is what's going on today, and let's make sure we have a great day. But instead we have the guys standing around in a huge circle, and I kind of have to yell so everybody can hear me, and it's hard because there's some guys behind me and there's some guys that aren't, and so no matter which way I turn, I'll always have guys behind me. And I have a mask on, and they have a mask on because they're getting ready to go, but they're not running around yet. So yeah, it's just simple things like that. And then in between drills, we have our distancing and things like the locker room. We're not using a locker room this term. We are doing the guys wash. We have 4 different loops, so we're taking care of that. But we're not using a locker room, and that's obviously to help prevent the spread and just get into a routine. It's totally different, but get into a safe routine that allows us to do this safely and do it the right way.
Great. So part of that planning and is this competition, the opportunity to compete, and particularly compete within the Patriot League Conference. And so what engagement, conversations have you and your peers in the Patriot League as head coaches had to, one, construct what is certainly a unique Patriot League schedule for this season, but also even just conversations about having to pivot, right? You mentioned being fluid, knowing that the environment can impact and change weekend setups.
Yeah, it's interesting because every institution has their own set of protocols for handling COVID, whether it's the quarantining, the tracing, the return to play. the number of players that can be at practice and things like that, the way you travel. But we all have our own set of issues. One of the things that we talked about as a group of coaches in the Patriot League is we did want to make sure that we played as many games as possible, and I think as coaches, we're willing to travel. We're willing to do whatever it takes to play a game. And right now, we're only going to have one overnight. I think every school in the league has like a one overnight limit. Maybe there's an exception with one school having two, and maybe there's an exception with one school having 0 overnights. But generally speaking, we're going to get on the bus and drive 3 hours or 2.5 hours and get off the bus and change and get ready to play, which is kind of like the old days back in the 80s and the early 90s. So it can be done, but we all have the same issues, and we're all working through it.
Great. And then you mentioned just the challenges and the mental and physical resolve. So what's been the message? What's the focus, sort of the mantra of the team this year, and what have you observed as far as the resolve of the members of the program as it relates to mental and physical stuff?
Yeah, so we had a team meeting and talked about all the things that this team needs to focus on and how this season will be defined, and certainly being flexible and being mentally tough on a daily basis are our top priorities. And the guys don't know it yet, but we summarized the meeting that we had, and we have wristbands that are going to come out and say something to the effect of that most people, most things run away from the storm, but the bison charge through the storm. And that's actually a fact. When bison see a huge storm coming, the natural reaction of any animal is to start running away from the storm, but the storm is coming at about 60 miles an hour. So it's impossible to run away from the storm. So the longer you run away from the storm, the longer you'll spend in the storm. But it's kind of a wimpy way to deal with a storm. The bison actually turn, see the storm, they charge right through it. So they're actually in the storm for less amount of time. It's pretty brilliant by the bison. And that's pretty much how we're handling COVID in this season.
Well, Coach, your herd was definitely storming, to steal your phrase. At the beginning of last year, you were 5-1, nationally ranked, playing really well, and then the pandemic hits. And for your team, not only was the season cut short, but it was cut short a little bit earlier than other Patriot League teams because your opener with Boston was postponed, so you didn't get the chance to play that. So how have you and the players put that unfinished business behind you, so to speak, and turned the focus to 2021?
Well, it's interesting, and I would like to touch on that. Last year, when COVID all started to hit, all sports, NBA, any other sports, college sports, NC2A sports, March 12th was pretty much the day where everything shut down, right? And so it was building actually very quickly in the United States for 2 or 3 weeks prior to that. And then it just, ballooned that week. So the weekend, so that upcoming, and that was on a Thursday. I think it was March 12th, which was a Thursday. So that Saturday would have been March 14th. The Saturday prior to that would have been March 7th. So the weekend of March 7th, we were supposed to play, as you mentioned, Boston University. But that week leading up to the Boston University game, they had a bunch of guys that had flu-like symptoms. And so they weren't sure if it was COVID, and the testing was so primitive back last year on the week going into March 7th that it took like 4 days. And long story short, we were scheduled to play them, and then it got delayed. Okay, we'll play Sunday instead of Saturday, so we had to readjust. And then, okay, we'll play Monday instead of Sunday, and we had to readjust. And then on Tuesday, we finally canceled the game, and then we started to prepare for Loyola, and then that got canceled. So we've actually been dealing with this, and so we had the whole off season. So we really knew what it was going to feel like, and it wasn't a great feeling, but we knew what, having a game scheduled and then having it taken away, and then maybe having to play a new opponent like we had this past week or now this upcoming Saturday. It really helped prepare us, from a mental standpoint to deal with the emotional roller coaster that's involved with getting excited to play an opponent, focusing on that group of individuals that we're going against, and then having to completely pivot and change. And so our team's familiar with that. And we've already had 3 games taken away this year, but fortunately we've added one for this weekend. So I would like to think that our team is going to be really focused, really excited, and hopefully we can bottle all that energy into real positive results on Sunday.
Coach, we mentioned, so the team was off to a great start last year, and actually the team only lost to graduation 4 members, while all impact members, only 4 members of the squad have moved on. So most of your returners are back, and so talk to us about a preview of what this season could look like from your starting. Essentially give us what the team might look like starting back with the goalie and moving up to the front line.
Sure. Last year we did have a great year, and it was really disappointing that it got cut off short because we were just getting better and better. And if you look at the national statistics from last year, we were in the top 11 in 7 categories, team categories, and so we were playing really well. So the fact that we have just about our entire team back, and we've added some new guys, some new faces. I firmly believe that we're a better team than we were last year, and last year was pretty good. So, I think the preseason rankings came out. The league coaches had us voted pretty low, which is great. I think our guys will embrace the underdog mentality that we thrive on. So thank you to the rest of the Patriot League coaches for not having any faith in the Bison this year. We appreciate that. And then I think, from our team, I think we've got a stud, so to speak, in every position. The goalie, the faceoff position, even multiple players in some positions, attack, midfield, defense, defensive midfield. I feel like we have an all-conference guy, at least one in every position. And I think we've got more depth than we've ever had, and we've got a ton of experience. So I am excited for this season. Obviously, every season is different, and no game has been won on paper or with experience. However, I'd rather have those kinds of things going for us than something else that looked a lot different in years past. So we couldn't be more excited.
So, Coach, one of the young men on this call, Tommy Sapko, enters this season after being a 3-year starter already for the program. How has he developed, and how has his role changed over time for the Bison?
Yeah, and so Tommy's gotten better every year, and Tommy did start as a freshman on a really good attack unit with Will Sands and Connor O'Hara. Both guys were drafted into the MLL and are still playing professionally. And so Tommy was the 3rd guy on that unit, and had a lot of success and helped us win a lot of games, and played his role. And then, his sophomore year, he had to step up and play a much bigger role. And I think through the years, Tommy's improved his offhand, he's improved his speed and quickness, he's improved his shooting accuracy, and he's improved his feeding ability. And he's become a real complete player with a lot of diversity in his game, which, that's what you hope for every player. But Tommy's a great example because I think being really good in lacrosse is important to Tommy, and he clearly puts in the time in the off season. So we're really excited for Tom, and he was just voted one of the co-captains as well.
Our next question is from a viewer, and it's from Chuck in Frederick, Maryland, and he wants to know, how have the coaches kept the players focused on lacrosse and their studies during the pandemic season?
Yeah, well, I think the studies part really is, we haven't done as much lacrosse as we have in the past. So these guys have a lot more freedom to focus on their academics. They do have a lot more time because of the virtual classes. There's not as much walking to and from class. Our practices haven't been as often. They haven't been as long. So we have to be really efficient with what we do with the guys on the field. And then they have to be accountable and efficient on their own with their studies. But our GPA as a team was terrific last term, and I wouldn't expect anything less on this term. But our guys are excited to be at practice every day, and I don't think that the social life has been the same as it's been in past. So I think that's probably another reason why our academics have been real solid again this year.
So Frank, you have the really unique privilege of being able to coach your son at the collegiate level. What's that been like for you? And is it really true, the old adage that fathers are tougher on their own son than the rest of the team?
Yeah, it's been great to have my son on the team. I think it's made me a better coach. I think I've always tried to treat, the players on my team as I would try to treat my own son, but it's really hard to actually execute that until your son's actually on the team and you can see exactly what that looks and feels like. So I pick and choose my moments. I still get on players when they don't perform, just as I would my own son. But I think I try to keep it objective. I try not to go too far that way, Todd, and be harder on my son, because I don't think it's fair to him. But at the same time, I work really hard, from on an everyday level to just treat him like everybody else.
Coach, let's close our conversation with you today and just talk about the Patriot League and the landscape of the league, which is certainly one of the top men's lacrosse leagues, and share for us, give us a rundown of the conference and who you even think will be the toughest opponent for the Bison this spring.
Yeah. So, this league has always has a lot of teams that are in the top 20, and a lot of teams that can beat anybody on any given day. And that's no different this year. As we've seen already, Army was real competitive with Virginia, but lost. And then they actually blew out Syracuse a week ago. And the Syracuse team that ended up turning around and blowing out Virginia. So Army, in my opinion, when I do the rankings each week, I have them in the top 5 nationally. Loyola I have in the top 10 when I do the rankings. They've had some solid wins and looked really good again this year. And Navy's undefeated and they're ranked in the top 20. And then Lehigh is undefeated and ranked 16th in the nation. So right there, you've got 4 teams ranked in the top 20, 2 of which are in the top 10. I put us in the top 20 when I do rankings, even though we haven't competed. Knowing what we have returning from last year and all that, I firmly believe that we are a team that belongs in the top 20. So, I think our league in general has the ability to have multiple teams make the NC2A tournament and actually have multiple wins in the NC2A tournament and actually have someone that could win the national championship. And that's Patriot League lacrosse. I mean, there's a lot of parity in the sport of lacrosse. There's real good teams in the Patriot League, and there's definitely some teams that could, in my humble opinion, actually win a national championship.
Well, Frank, we're really excited for you and your team that you're going to actually get on the field and begin competition on Sunday with Cleveland State here at home. Best of luck to you and the team this spring, and thanks for taking the time out today.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. This is it's a great idea.
All right, time now to welcome in our 3 current players to today's program. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so our first guest is senior attacker Tommy Sapko, who hails from Berwyn, PA, and is a product of Conestoga High School. Thanks for joining us today, Tommy.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Can you start off by telling folks at home what your recruiting story was and how did you wind up playing lacrosse for the Bison?
Sure. So my recruiting story, I think it was a little later than everybody else. A lot of people in my class committed in freshman or sophomore year. I was a little bit later. I wanted to wait and see what I really wanted to do. And towards the end of my sophomore year, going into that summer, I was talking to a lot of places, and the 3 most important aspects of a school I wanted were good lacrosse, good academics, and good social life. And Bucknell definitely had all those three. And then after talking with Coach Fed and Coach Connor at the time, I really, really knew that this was the place for me and I was going to have a great 4 years here. And that's definitely been true.
Tommy, thanks for joining us. Great to see you. I have a two-part question, which actually comes from one of our viewers today. So it's from Daniel in Milton, Georgia, and he wants to know, first part, given the current schedule, who do you see as the toughest opponent this year?
It's tough. Like Coach Fed already said, there's a lot of great teams in the Patriot League. Every year Lehigh's very good. Every year Loyola is very good. Same thing with Army, and this year they've already shown to be extremely good. So I guess I'd have to pin it on one of those three teams. But to give you one answer, probably Army.
Great. All right. Next one. Not a lacrosse question, but the second part of his question is who's the best fly fisherman on the team?
Best fly fisher on the team. That's an easy one. It's Ben Clark. It's one of his favorite hobbies, and yeah, he's excellent at it.
Well, he's got some good streams here, so hopefully.
I think he's taking a fly fishing class this semester actually too, so he's getting a lot of practice.
That's great.
I gotta ask, Tommy, are there other guys on the team that are fly fishermen?
I think former player Ben Wilkinson is a big fly fisherman. They live together, and I'm pretty sure they do that a lot. I think Boz could definitely agree with that, right?
Yeah, they every Sunday, when it's nice outside, they definitely try to go to the river and spend all day out there.
Well, that's a great thing to do, certainly during the pandemic when you can't do much else, right? Great hobby to have. So, Tommy, back to the question for you. Back in late August, if you can remember that far back, we recorded a Through the Decades series for men's lacrosse, and you were able to be part of a call with the alums from the decade that started it all here, the 1960s. What was that experience like? That call featured 4 Hall of Famers and the legendary Sid Jameson, who was the first coach of the program. What did you learn from that call, and tell us about that?
I think the biggest thing I learned from that call is that they weren't too different from us. Even though it was over 60 years ago, they had a lot of the same cultures as a team, just hard work and not making excuses for themselves. Like Coach Fed always says, embracing adversity. And off the field, they had some really funny stories, which kind of reminds us of some of the funny things that we get into today.
Tommy, we mentioned you as one of the most experienced players returning as a member of the team, having started in all 36 games during your career, which is exceptional. So talk to us about what you've been able to learn from your experiences and how you've mentored, particularly younger guys and even first-year members of the team as they navigate this extremely unique year.
Yeah, sure. It's certainly been difficult this year compared to others with the limited exposure we have to the guys. But I think experience on a team like Bucknell is very important, especially because some of our biggest principles in our game is our ride and our clear and somewhat intangible things. And it doesn't really matter how talented you are. If you don't know how to do those, it's not going to be helpful to our team. So just knowing the correct spots to be on the ride and the clear, and just knowing what we're trying to go for in those scenarios and teaching to the younger guys and making sure they know the ins and outs of those scenarios, I think is really important.
Tommy, I know you're just getting back to action this weekend, so we don't want to push things for you by any means, but your senior graduation is coming up. Do you have any post-graduation plans at this point?
Still very up in the air, but I would love to play lacrosse again for another year. So that's something that I'm currently trying to do.
All right. Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck with that. And as always, with your first competition coming up Sunday and the rest of the spring. So thanks a lot for being here today, Tommy.
Yep. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Our next guest is senior defender Bryant Boswell, who's from Frederick, Maryland, and came to Bucknell from Georgetown Prep. Welcome, Bryant. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Brian, I'll ask you the same question to start. For Bison fans who may not know it, what's your recruiting story and how did you wind up a Bison?
My recruiting story is a very last-minute one. I kind of came to Bucknell for a standard camp, and I caught the eye of the coaches, and Coach Connor called me that next Monday telling me he wants us to come here. So I didn't commit till kind of the winter of my senior year. I didn't really know where I was going to go at that point. I started looking to see if I wanted to play football or even wrestle in college at places. So I kind of lucked out with Coach Connor taking a risk on me, and hopefully it worked out. So.
Well, I would say that it has worked out as you have started in 24 games in your career as a standout defenseman for the Bison. And so, how much do you and your fellow defenders relish in shutting down the powered offenses in the Patriot League? And then also for those novice lacrosse fans out there, explain the 10-man ride.
The Patriot League offenses are very, depending on the team, very different. So it definitely comes with its challenges. You have the military academies who just want to out physical the other team, and they're definitely really good at it. And then you have the smaller teams who just want to beat people with their pure technical skills. So each week is definitely a struggle and a challenge to overcome them, and it feels very good when we come out on top at the end of the day. And the 10-man ride is a very energetic and powerful ride because it all stems from our sideline. Every week in our scouting report, we find some kind of mascot to name the ride that usually is the rival of their mascot, their school mascot. And as we start that ride, you just hear the echoes and howls from the sideline, which give everybody on the field energy to just ride hard and pressure the ball. And every year we've been top 10, top 20 in riding and turnover percentage. So it feels really good when that 10-man ride works.
Well, there's no question. I mean, you mentioned your sideline. There's no question the Bucknell sideline plays a huge role in all of the games you guys play and everything you do on the field. And we talked earlier about, coming in and knowing where to be on that 10-man ride. And particularly when you're a freshman, you're just learning that. Can you give us your best scouting report, Bryant, of the freshman class and maybe give us some names of kids we should be watching for this season?
Our freshman class, kind of the top two for me, Dutch Furlong and Duncan Hill. Dutch is an attackman, a freshman attackman who will probably play at Midi because he's a very talented guy at the game of lacrosse coming out of Gilman in Baltimore, which is a very highly touted lacrosse high school. And he just knows where to be at all times. He knows the game very well. And then Duncan is a freshman defenseman who is just very smart. He's an engineer here at Bucknell, and every question he asks about the defense is a great one and is always somewhat difficult to answer because experience is the best teacher. But I always want to help them out, and those two are definitely going to make impacts later in their career.
So after not having competed for some time, that's all getting ready to change here on Sunday when we welcome Cleveland State to Christie. Can you share how excited you and your teammates are to return to competition, and just how prepared are you from a physical and mental standpoint? What have you all as student athletes been focusing in on?
There's really no better feeling to get back out there. It was a real dagger when our season got canceled last year because we were on a real hot run. So getting back out there, obviously with the last 2 weekends being canceled, it's been tough to just stay focused. But as a team, we embrace adversity, and we can't think of a better time to get out there than this weekend because any given weekend, the hurt always shows up. So physically, we haven't played anybody. So physically, we haven't had to deal with any injuries, thankfully. And mentally, it's just getting back into the season form and knowing where to be and what to do.
So, Bryant, we'll end your time today with a very similar question we asked Tommy. And again, senior year, post-graduation plans, lacrosse included in that. What's your thought at this point?
Yeah, I've been talking to a few schools, and I think I'm gonna have that 5th year of lacrosse. I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, best of luck with that whole process for you, and we wish you the best of luck this weekend against Cleveland State.
Thank you.
All right. Time now for our final guest today. He's no stranger to the local Bison fans. That's midfielder Matt Fedoraka, who's considered a fifth year here at Bucknell. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So can you do the same and share your recruiting story? Some fans may not know you didn't actually start your career here with the Orange and Blue.
Yeah, that's true. So when I was in high school, I'd grown up in Lewisburg my whole life. Obviously, my dad and my mom both worked here for many years, so I was very familiar with the university. And as a high school kid, I didn't think I wanted to go to Bucknell. You know, Lewisburg was a small town, and I kind of made up my mind on getting out and going somewhere else. So I started my career at Fairfield University in Connecticut, playing for Coach Copeland, who was a graduate of Bucknell Lacrosse as well. And it was great, and I really enjoyed my time at Fairfield, but I think it gave me a new perspective and a new enjoyment for wanting to come back to Bucknell and play for my dad and be around my family and have my friends and family around the area coming to be able to watch me. And I think I found the importance of that there and made the decision to come back to Bucknell. And I'm so glad I did that. And, you know, I don't think if I had that year at Fairfield, I would have been able to appreciate this place as much as I have. So it's been really great.
All right, Matt. Well, we asked your dad earlier about the dynamic, and so it's your turn. And you just certainly shared a little bit, but talk to us about, having been a student of the game and of being around sports, what impact that has had on you as a student athlete and your game. And is your dad harder on you?
Well, I mean, I guess some days it feels like that, but I know he always has the best interest at heart for me and for most importantly for the team. And, you know, I always tell people there's a lot more good than bad that's come for playing for my dad. I mean, certainly there's days where you are just not having a good day and, you know, your coach is yelling at you and it also happens to be your dad. Doesn't make you feel much better. And you can get pretty upset about it. But, you know, overall, it's been really great. And just being able to have that communication with him, like kind of always knowing, you know, where I stand with him, I think it's helped me personally being able to get the most out of my game. And it's just been such a special experience, like getting to enjoy so many great wins and just regular practice days are just really awesome. I think that's something that we'll appreciate even more as we get older and my time here at Bucknell ends.
Well, Matt, fans may not know the connection yet, but there's more to the Fedoraka lacrosse family than just father and son. Your sister, Jamie's a first-year player for the Bucknell women's team. So how have you been able to help her with the transition to college? And if asked, what would be your scouting report on Jamie's game?
Jamie, yeah. So it's interesting, you know, before this fifth year, we were always 5 years apart. So we would have never really crossed paths, but this year allowed for that. So this is the first time we've ever really been in like school together, even though we both went to Lewisburg. So, I mean, it's been kind of cool just seeing her around campus. Obviously, I haven't gotten to see her as much as I would in a normal year, but, you know, she's got questions all the time, just from professors to the cafeteria to everything. And it's been kind of cool seeing her go through that freshman year as well. And that's been really neat. So, and the scout on Jamie, she's a strong left-handed player, really good shooter. We're working on her speed and athleticism. She's getting in the weight room for the first time, so I know she's working hard there. But she's a really good player, really smart player, and I think she's going to have some great years here at Bucknell.
Sounds like a future coach speaking there, Maisha. I don't know. What do you think?
I was following along. I hope Jamie's tuning in and feeling good about that encouragement here. But so Matt, how do you feel like your game has progressed during your time here at Bucknell, and is there a certain aspect of your game that you really want to focus on this season?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you know, coming from Lewisburg High School, it was a relatively new sport here. We're not a traditional private school. It's had lacrosse for 100 years. We've only had a varsity program for about 5 years when I was in high school. So even though I grew up in a house with a coach, I had a ton to learn, probably more than most of the guys in the program that came from a little bit more storied areas of lacrosse. So I think just learning the game, I've learned so much over the years of how to think through the game, and then just physically getting bigger, stronger, faster through hard work in the weight room and just naturally getting bigger as you get older. I feel like I've steadily progressed over the years, and you know, I'm excited to hopefully have my best one yet this year.
So Matt, really, you've been around the Bucknell lacrosse program virtually your entire life. what are some of the special memories that you may have from the program as you followed it as a child? And then what are some of the great memories you've already made here as a player in the current program?
Yeah, I mean, that's an awesome question. I have so many great memories of Bucknell Lacrosse. I mean, it's the reason why I started playing the game, just going out to practice every day and throwing with the guys as a 7 and 8 year old. And I mean, when you're 10 years old and you're on the sideline watching them play Virginia or playing for a Patriot League championship, those are some of the best memories of my life. And so, I mean, I'll always remember those. And I think, one of the coolest things has just been, now that I'm on the team, like, I think alumni weekend is really special. Coming back, I think it's cool for those guys to see me as little as they remember, like little Matty Fed from 8, 9 years old. Like having relationships with those guys now is really cool, and kind of just, maybe more than some other guys, seeing like the complete holistic view of the program, through the years. I mean, obviously there's only been 2 coaches, and I know Coach Jameson really well, but just seeing how tight this community is and seeing how much all these guys still care about the program is really special.
There's no question that it's a tight lacrosse program, that Bucknell men's lacrosse program, only having 2 coaches, as you mentioned, in over 50 years. It's really rare, and it enables players from across decades to connect with each other. So the final question for you, Matt, is the same we've asked of the other guys. Time's coming to an end for you here at Bucknell, but what does the future hold? Is there more lacrosse for you, or what are your post-graduation plans?
Yeah, so actually I'm in a fortunate position where I did redshirt my freshman year. So I do have a 6-year of eligibility, something I never thought I would be doing when I went to college, but it's an option. So I'm looking at potentially playing 1 more year somewhere else, or getting to work. So we'll make some decisions here in the next couple months, but I'm excited for whatever happens.
All right, well, we're excited for you as well and wish you the best of luck with that, and certainly with your final season here at Bucknell. Thanks again for being here today, Matt.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. A special thanks to all of our guests today. We appreciate their time. That'll just about wrap up today's show. I want to thank Jeffrey Campbell, Jen DeBias, and Jess O'Shaughnessy for their assistance with the show. Our next event in our season preview series will be on Monday, March 8th, and that's at 6 p.m., not noon, 6 p.m., and that will feature the Bucknell football program. So as a reminder, a complete schedule of our shows can be found on the Bucknell Athletics website. We thank you again for joining us today. Have a great weekend, and go Bison.